So, in sacred literature, like for example, if we take the Hebrew Bible, canon, it contains a collection of books which is recognized as authoritative. Okay, both in Judaism and Christianity, and the canon is regarded, or it is known as it is inspired by God, and it can be used for worship and mission activity. So, analyzing the formation of biblical canon, it is necessary to focus on the origin, the process of recognition, and the final fixing of the sacred literature. So basically, it is called as canon because according to it, or in line with it, it is a measuring stick. It is a measuring stick for our spiritual life. It is a measuring stick of how we need to live in our life. So it is known the Hebrew canon. Okay. So what is it about the Hebrew canon? So the Hebrew canon is called as the Tanakh. Okay, the Tanakh is uh, it is means the three books, three types of books are involved. The TA, it stands for the Torah. The NA, it stands for the Nabim, and the KH, stands for the Ketubim. Now, what is this Torah, Nabim, and Ketubim? Okay, so first is the Torah, which is also called as the law. Okay, so it includes the five books, the first five books, which is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And it was called, it is also, the Torah is also known as the Pentateuch. Okay, so we have the first, in the Hebrew Bible, there are three divisions, the Torah, the Nabim, and the Ketubim. The Torah is the law, which has the books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Okay. Now, the next we come is the Nabim, or the prophetic books. Now, in these prophetic books, we have the former prophets and we have the later prophets. Okay, so the former prophets are Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and the Kings, while the later prophets are Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and in this uh, prophets, we have former prophets, we have later prophets, and in later prophets, we have major prophets and we have minor prophets. So the major prophets are Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, while the minor prophets are Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. So basically, this division between the prophets on the which is the major prophets or the minor prophets, it is not because that one prophet is more important or one prophet is less important. Basically, this division of major prophet and minor prophets is done due to the content. Okay, so now if you look at the book of Isaiah or Jeremiah or Ezekiel, you will see that it has more content, it has more chapters, or it covers much more themes, universal themes. While in minor prophets, we see that the chapters are less, and it is more narrowed down to a specific region, or it's more narrowed down to a specific themes. The third part of the Tanakh, or the third part of the Hebrew Bible, is known as the Ketubim. And this ketubim, it contains writings, like it has poetry, it has wisdom literature, and it also has some historical books. Okay, so the ketubim or the wisdom writings are Psalms, Proverbs, Job, then also the poetical books of Song of Songs, also Ruth, Lamentation, Ecclesiastes, Esther. And also we have the five scrolls, which are Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Chronicles. So these are some of uh, the initial things that which we need to know, that Hebrew, again I'll repeat, Hebrew Bible, it has basically three parts: the Nabim, the Torah, the Nabim, and the Ketubim. The Torah, it has the five books. The Nabim, or the prophetic writings, it has been divided into the former prophets and the later prophets. The former prophets are basically the prophets which are during the time of before the time of the kingship and during the time of the kingship sometimes. But the later prophets are basically when a little bit more earlier time before the exile, when the people of Israel were taken into exile. And also these later prophets are divided again into two parts, which is the major prophets and the minor prophets. And the third part is the Ketubim. And the Ketubim, it involves the poetry, it involves the wisdom literature, and it also involves some historical scrolls. Okay, but the main topic or the main subject which we are going to focus on is the Pentateuch, which is the first five books of the Hebrew Bible, which is known as the Torah or the Law. It is the first five books is also commonly referred to as Pentateuch, and the Greek word, it is derived from the Greek word penta, which means five, and theos, is which was generally a case for carrying the papyrus roll, but in later usage, the scroll itself. So, firstly, the meaning of this word to cause was basically, it was like in olden times we see that there was scrolls. So basically it was something which was, it was kind of a vessel in which you carried the papyrus rolls, but later on Tukos also started meaning to the scroll itself. The first five volume or the first five books corresponds to the Jewish description of the first fifth of the law found in the Talmud. So in Talmud, basically these are called as the five fifths of the law. In Judaism, it is called as the Torah, and which means instruction or the law. The term also appears in the compounds Torah, which means the laws, Torah Moshe, which means the law of Moses, Sefer Torah Moshe, which means the book of the law of Moses, and so also we go on of about where we see that this usage of this Torah, we can see that in the several passages in the Old Testament as well as in the New Testament. And this uh, the first five books, is also extended it Octatude, which is uh, extended from Genesis to Judges, and sometimes it is the Hexatude, which is the from Genesis to Joshua. Okay, so what are the contents of this book? What are the contents of Pentateuch? So when we look now in Pentateuch, we see that there is Genesis, there is Exodus, there is Leviticus, there is Numbers, and there is Deuteronomy. So Genesis, mostly what do we see in Genesis is we have the creation account in Genesis, and also we have what we call is the history of the nation. Now, what we mean by the history of a nation is that in Genesis, if I would request you all that please have your Bibles with you so that we will be able to understand it in a more better way, how the division is done and how what is the different contents of the book of the Pentateuch. So when we look at Genesis, what we see is first from chapter 1 to chapter 12, from chapter 1 to chapter 11, sorry, not 12, we see that this is generally known as the myth, or it is known as the legend. The chapters from 1 to 11, we see how the world was formed, how God created the world. And then we see the descendants of Abraham and Eve, and we see that how these descendants of Abraham and Eve, what they do, they rebel against God. There was wickedness during the time, and if we can refer to Genesis chapter 6, we see that when people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh, their days shall be 120 years. So basically, here we see that God is not very happy with the way the people are leading life. And so on, we go to the story of the great flood. Okay, so then comes the story again. We see that Noah is there, and we see that how God saved Noah's family, and how after the flood it is Noah's family which flourishes here. And from there on, we go to so also the humankind flourishes on the face of the earth. Then we come to chapter 12, and here we see the story or the call of Abraham, which is basically very important to the Israelite history, because the Israelites, they consider Abraham as their father. So it was the promise that God or that Yahweh gave to Abraham, because of which the uh, nation, the Israelite nation was formed. So, friends, this as it is a very uh, important chapter, uh, I would like maybe someone of you to read Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. If any one of you can read, please.
Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 3.
Yes,
The
please.
Lord had said to Abram, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
here, God is calling out Abraham from his own land, from his own comfort zone, from the people he is living with, so that God can create a nation. And the motive of it creating this nation is that through this nation, all the families of the earth, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. And so then from there on we see that the journey of Abraham is wherever God is asking him to go. And so we see that there is the journey of Abraham. And then we see that there is birth of Isaac, and we see birth of Jacob, and then Jacob has 12 sons, and we see the story of these 12 sons, and we see that these among these brothers we see who we see the story of Joseph, and we see that Joseph was not someone who was very much liked by his brothers, and therefore they sell him, and they sell him, and then we see that we see the entry of Joseph in the land of Egypt, and then we see how God is with Joseph, and we see how he finds favor in the eyes of Pharaoh, and how he's made the head of he's like the right hand of the Pharaoh, or he's like a very becomes a very important person. And then we see that Jacob's brothers, they come to Egypt as they are in search of food because there is famine in the land, and that's how we see that Jacob and his family, or and his brothers, they reunite, and the whole all the brothers of all all the brothers of Joseph and all the sons of Jacob, they come and they stay in the land of Egypt. Okay, so the book of Genesis, it ends with Joseph's death. Okay, now when we go to the book of Exodus, and we know that the book of Exodus is an extremely important book. It is extremely important because the liberation theology which has come up, it is basically inspired by the book of Exodus. Exodus shows, if Genesis shows the picture of a God as creator, Exodus shows the picture of God as a liberator, a God who is there with the people in their oppression, a God who listens to the cries of the people. And so the story, or in the beginning of Exodus, we see that these people, these Hebrew people or these Israelite people, they are there in the land of Egypt. But the Pharaoh of that time does not know these Israelite people, or does not know their history. And so what does he do? He makes them slave. Okay. Uh, okay. Can someone read from Exodus chapter 1, verse 8 to 10? Sorry, not 8 to 8 to 11. If someone can read Exodus chapter 1, verses 8 to 11. Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Exodus chapter 1, 8 to 11.
Yes, please.
Then a new king who did not know about Joseph came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, And if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, we'll join our enemies, fight against us and leave the country. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for Pharaoh.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
Yes.
So here we see that the verse starts with the king or the pharaoh who was there over Egypt. He did not know Joseph, and therefore what he does is that he puts them into oppression. He's scared actually. He's scared that what he's scared of that they will increase the number and that they will become more than us. So that is the fear that is there in him, and that's why what he thought that we cannot let that happen, and therefore he started to oppress them more. He started to give them more work, and so the story continues, and we see that even this thing of oppressing them more or giving them hard work more, it does not work out. The even while applying these tools to oppress the people, what happens? They were still multiplying. Okay, they were still multiplying and they were still increasing in numbers. So the Pharaoh, what he did, he chose another trick to do. And then what was the trick which he did? Can someone read Exodus chapter 1 verses 15 to 16? 15 and 16?
Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah and the other Hua. When you serve as midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him, but if it is a daughter, she shall live.
Thank you, sir. So, what we see here, when Pharaoh's first trick doesn't work out, what he does, he goes for a second trick so that they may not increase. And what was the trick? That if it is a boy, if he calls the midwives. So midwives are the women who actually help the woman during the help the pregnant woman during the time of pregnancy. So they were like we can call them the doctors, or they were we can call them the doctors or the nurses of those times. So he calls this two women, Shipra and Pua, and then he says to them that if it is a boy, you shall kill him, but if it is a girl, she shall live. But these two midwives, they were very much fearful of God. They were very much faithful to God, and they did not listen to what the Pharaoh was saying. But what they did, even if it was a boy, what happened? They let this boy live. And so on, we see that Moses is born, and we see how his mother and how his sister, they both put him in the boat, and how the Pharaoh's daughter, she finds him in the river, and we see that Moses, he grows up in the palace as a prince, and after that we see uh, uh, that what happens is that Moses Moses sees that the one Moses sees that an Egyptian is beating a Hebrew, and that's why he goes and he intervenes in it, and he kills the Egyptian. And then again a second incident happened wherein two Hebrews are fighting, and then Moses just goes to them and says that why you both are fighting, you both are brothers. And then one of them says to him that will you just kill us like you kill the Egyptian. And then Moses was very scared because Moses he came to know that that he has killed the Egyptian has already been known among the people. So he runs away, and he goes and settles in Midian. There he becomes a shepherd. And then in chapter 3 we see that a very important chapter again. There we see how Moses is on by um called on by Yahweh. This is the first chapter where actually Yahweh reveals the name. So this chapter is very much important, and we see that Moses is actually not ready to accept this task which God has given us. God asked him to go to Egypt and to say to Pharaoh that let my people go, and then they set them free. And Moses is very much scared and he doesn't want to go, so he comes up with a lot of excuses. But for all of his excuses, Yahweh has an answer, and therefore we see that Moses and Aaron, who is his cousin, both of them, they go to the Pharaoh. Then when they go to the Pharaoh, we see what we call as the Pharaoh is also not ready to go the slaves or to go the Hebrew people just go away like that, because he needed someone to do his work, and he was getting this free labor, and therefore he was not ready to let go these Hebrew people. And then what we see is that these Hebrew people, then after that we see what happens. We see the 10 plagues in Egypt, and after the 10th plague, we see that the people of Israel, they are let free from the Egypt. And so in Exodus also, there begins from chapter 20. We see chapter 20 is also very much important, and there in chapter 20 we see that the 10 commandments are given. The 10 important commandments of Yahweh are given to the people. Now, as we look into why these 10 commandments hold so much importance, it is basically because the people were in slavery for so many years. They say that more than 400 years the people were in slavery in Egypt. They were under someone, and someone already was telling them what to do. So now these people, they were free people. Now they had become free, and what happened was that they did not have any guidelines, nor they have anyone to lead them. And so we see that Yahweh, who liberated them, who delivered them, here becomes their guide and gives them 10 commandments that they need to follow, or 10 commandments which are very important and which are very much basic to their living, to form them as a nation. Now, in this Exodus, we see that these slaves who are there in the Egypt, they are coming out of this slavery, and now is the stage when they are actually being formed into a nation. And being formed into a nation, what happens? Yahweh is leading them, or Yahweh is guiding them through these laws or through these commandments. And so also through Exodus, when we go, we see that there are basically different kinds of laws which are concerning the slaves, laws which are concerning the property, laws for the Sabbath. Hello?
Nothing, ma'am. Just continue, ma'am. Continue, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes?
Yes, ma'am. Continue, ma'am. No problem.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. And then we have the laws which are concerning the festivals, and then uh, also we have the ark, the ark of the covenant. The covenant in the ark of the covenant is basically a kind of uh, thing in which the tablets, the Ten Commandments were kept in it. Then we also have the burnt. We also think someone's mic. Yeah, thank you. Uh, hello. Yeah, and so we see that. Yeah, where was I? Yeah. So we see the formation of the tabernacle, also how the offerings are to be made, what all is to be there in the tabernacle. It's about the lamp, it is about the altar, and the various kind of things, how things have to be, in what shape, in what size, how it has to be done. So that ends with the Exodus. Now, Leviticus also, we see that Leviticus is basically divided into two parts, from chapter 1 to chapter 16 and chapter 17 to chapter 27. So, chapter 1 to chapter 16 is basically we see that the different kind of again offerings, how it has to be offered is given. And interestingly, chapter 17 to chapter 27 is known as the holiness code, or is known as the holy code. So basically, this was meant to be kept. It was very much strict for the Israelites to keep this law. The main theme of this chapter, from chapter 17 to chapter 27, is that God, like I said in chapter no, in Genesis we see God as creator, in Exodus we see God as a liberator, and now in Leviticus, God is shown, God is seen as a God who is holy. Throughout these chapters from 17 to 27, the basic theme, or the basic aim of writing this, if we read through it, we can see that the main theme is God saying, "Be holy because I, the Lord your God, is holy." And that is the theme, or that is the main aim, that you have to be holy because your God is holy. Being God of being people of the holy God, you also need to be holy. And in order to be holy, these are the laws, or these are the things that you need to follow. And between uh, all this, between the chapter 17 to chapter 27, we have this chapter 19, which actually forms like the middle of this book. And then it talks more about love, like loving your neighbor, and having concern for your neighbor, being just to your neighbor. So when we actually deeply study these laws, we see that these laws are something which are concerning the human relationship, how we need to deal with each other with justice, and uh, we need not to do injustice to each other. And also, if we go back to the commandments, we see that the first few commandments are relating to God, but the uh, next few are relating to the human beings. Like if we go back, let's just read those. This is important. Can someone read Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 to um, 17? 1 to 17. Can someone read, please? Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 to 17.
Yes, ma'am. Exodus 20 verses 1 to 17. And God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant or maidservant, nor your animals, nor the alien within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant or maidservant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. That's all, no, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, ma'am, for reading.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So here in the Ten Commandments, what we observe is that the first four commandments, the first four commandments are relating or defining the relationship between God and the human being. The first four commandments, while the six commandments, the remaining six commandments, are to do with how we need to have a personal or interpersonal relationship with each other, and that relationship, it has to do with justice, it has to do with equality, and it has to do with lot of love. Now here when we see that you shall Yahweh giving the command, like you shall not murder, is something that shows that Yahweh is a God of peace and Yahweh is a God of life, and therefore anything that is harmful to life is regarded here as a sin. Like you shall not murder, it is given over there, or you shall not take steal someone's property. So like this also in Leviticus, which we see, we deeply study from chapter 17 to 27. This is basically talking about the laws which help the people, or which are very much important for people, for not just having a relationship with Yahweh, their God, but also it is to be in a right relationship with their neighbors. And so we go to the Leviticus. Then when we come to the book of Numbers. So basically Numbers is consists of taking the numbers. Numbers is means it is the taking the census. And likewise in Numbers we see Also that the people or the people or the descendants of Jacob, they are numbered, and we see actually this formation of the 12 tribes or the 12 clans, and it is done in a very kind of systematic kind of way. And also we have this story where these people of these people, these Hebrew people, what they are doing, they are uh, they are moving towards the promised land. And also we see that the few commandments are given over here, and we also see that how people we have the stories of how the people are complaining in the desert, and we see how they are revolting against Yahweh. And so the story goes on in the book of in the book of Numbers. We also see the story of of Balak and Balaam. Balaam, who was the priest of the king Balak, and how he was asked to curse the people of Israel, but instead of cursing, what comes from his mouth is the blessings. And then again, because of the revolting, what happens is that the people or the children or the chosen people of God, what happens to them? For 40 years, they have to be in the wilderness. They have to roam in the wilderness because of their continuous complaining, because of their lack of faith, because of their uh, this satisfaction, because they were not very much thankful to whatever Yahweh had done. And because of that, the route which was very close, means like they could have reached in maybe 1 or 2 years. What happened? It extends till 40 years. And so we see that this book of Numbers, it has it has different kind of stories, and it has the census, the two census that were taken of the Israelite people. Now, Deuteronomy is also the fifth and the last book. Deuteronomy is known as the second law. Okay, so it is not. It is that these people are okay. Can someone read um, Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 1 to 3? Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 1 to 3.
These are the words that Moses spoke to all Israel beyond the Jordan in the wilderness, in the Arabah opposite Shuf, between Paran and Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth and Dijab. It is 11 days journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barna. In the
Uh,
40th year, on the first day of the 11th month, Moses spoke to the people of Israel according to all that the Lord had given him in commandment to them.
okay, thank you, sir. So basically, the Deuteronomy is like the second law, or it is the extension of those 10 commandments. And here we see that the people of Israel are uh, are along the river Jordan, and they are about to enter this promised land which Yahweh had promised the ancestors. Now, also in Book of Numbers, what we see is that Moses, he what he does is that he hits the rock twice. He is supposed to hit it once, but he hits the rock twice in anger. And that is why God says to him that you cannot enter the land. And now, what Moses will do is that even though he's traveling or he has been with this people till now, he's not able to enter with them in the promised land. And as being a responsible leader, as being a responsible person, what he is doing, that he's sitting them down and he's again reminding them of whatever has happened, and he's also giving them commandments of what they have to do when they go into the promised land. So here we see that uh, he's reminding them, he's reminding that how Yahweh has been them with has been with them from the time they were slaves in Egypt till now, and how further more we see that how further more when they go in the promised land, they have to behave or how they have to act, and therefore these other laws are given. Okay. Okay. Mm, okay. So, friends, this was about the Pentateuch and it was about the content. So, we'll just take maybe 10 minutes break and it's, can we come back at 8:30? We'll take 10 minutes break. We will then we'll come back at 8:30 and then we'll continue. Is it
Thank you.
okay? Yeah, okay.
Yes,
10
ma'am.
minutes. Thank you, friends.